Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be doing a review of parts 1 and 2 of the 1941 film, The 47 Ronin. Before going into the review, though, please be sure to smash the like button, light up the fire button if you're watching over on Odyssey. It really does help out a lot. Also, check out my website, ombreviews.com, for more information. So now, getting into the actual review itself, this is a movie which is incredibly difficult to find if you're looking for it on physical media, even though it is at least distributed by Criterion. And that is how I was able to watch it, is through HBO Max. They have various Criterion Collection movies on their service. They have part 1 and 2 of the 47 Ronin. I could not for the life of me find the actual DVD or Blu-ray on the Criterion Collection website, and the only one I could find was on Amazon, and the DVD was the only one that I could find, and it was pretty pricey. So my guess is that they maybe never did an official Blu-ray release of this movie on Criterion, which, to be honest, I kind of hope that they eventually do, and obviously we'll dive further into this article to see if there's any word on that, because I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought that this movie was absolutely fantastic. And one of the saddest parts about the movie is the fact that, of course, this took place being in 1941, during World War II. And so because of that, and because it would have been existing within the aftermath of World War II, it means that the chances of this film, especially since it was dealing with samurai and Japanese culture after the war, when there was a presence among the Allies in Japan, one of the things that they did, which is something I didn't find out until I watched the Samurai trilogy and did some research on that, was that they actually did not allow Japanese filmmakers to make any movies that had anything to do with samurai, had anything to do with Japanese culture in that way. And I found that to be very interesting. And so this would have been way before that time. And so it's interesting to see it from that perspective, but then also it makes sense as to why the only copy that seemingly we have available is actually very rough. The transfer looks really good as far as a transfer goes and the image quality, but the actual stock that they had, the actual film stock they had, is very clearly degraded and has so many just issues within it that it makes it actually kind of sad as you're watching it, because you're looking at the movie and there's some really incredible cinematography going on for a film in 1941. There's a lot of really cool stuff happening, but unfortunately, because of the degradation of the film stock of whatever they had in order to do the transfer, you see that it's just constantly jumping up and down, especially in those opening sequences and throughout the entirety of the movie, where it makes it very difficult to know what part of it is a natural movement of the camera. Are there any jumps in the movement of the camera, or is that just the film stock degradation causing that issue? And it makes me very sad, because there were some really awesome sequences. There was one especially towards the beginning where there's this nice slow panning shot. This movie is filled with great panning shots, also great use of space. So in most of the scenes and sequences that are framed, there's this great framing that happens where you have all these different levels. You have characters at different levels. So you have some characters that are higher up than others. And just those types of filmmaking techniques are just always so refreshing to see and to watch, especially in older films like this, because I really do feel like it is a lost art form where not only do you have just these basics of how to frame a shot, but also pretty good storytelling to boot. And there's some really great lines in this movie as well, which is why I think the screenplay for this film is fantastic. So this movie was directed by Kenji Mizoguchi, who also helped with the screenplay as well as with Yoshikata Yoda, and it's based off of a kabuki play by Mayama Seika. And every person in this movie, even though I thought did a great job as far as an ensemble cast is concerned, there really wasn't any character that to me kind of stood above the rest. They were all just really good. And I think that might be the reason why I feel this film is not as rewatchable as maybe it could have been, especially maybe had it been more well preserved, because it does get pretty distracting from time to time, which is, again, sad, because the screenplay is fantastic, the cinematography is beautiful, and the acting is really solid too. But because there is no person like a Toshiro Mifune in this movie, right, where you're able just to focus on this character and be drawn in by the character and by the charisma of the person, it's not one of those movies that I really feel like I'd be going back to watch over and over again, as good of a movie as I honestly do think that this film is. talking about the screenplay, one of the really awesome parts of the movie is there's this great line where the guy is trying to, the person who's in charge of the community, so for a basic story, I guess you could go into, as far as basic plot points are concerned, you have this Lord Asano, who ends up attacking Lord Kira in public, and after Lord Kira has publicly, essentially publicly made fun of Lord Asano, and so as revenge for that, he tries and he attacks Lord Kira, injuring him but not killing him. And so this is done in the castle of the Shogun. And so even though the Shogun was not present, because it happened and it happened to one of his officials, they make Lord Asano commit seppuku, essentially. And then they take all of his lands, and all of the people who served under him, who were samurai, are now Ronin, because they are now masterless, and they now dissolve the entire house of Lord Asano, while Lord Kira, who once again did do a public act by publicly, in public, making fun of and mocking Lord Asano, nothing happens to him. And there's a speculation that the reason why is because there might be a family connection between Lord Kira and the current Shogun. So that is what leads to these 47 Ronin wanting to get revenge on behalf of their master. But the person who is in charge of them after the death of their master says that they should hold off, because he's going to try to appeal to the good graces of the Shogun to try to reestablish the house, and so that while they wait for that decision, they should not do anything too hasty, which of course eventually leads to them having that be denied. And this one character especially, who plays kind of, I guess you could argue, the lead role in the movie, is one that I think, again, does a really good job as far as, the role that he plays. I'm trying to see if I can find what the actor's name is who plays it. Yeah, so Chojuro Kawarasaki. Again, probably butchering those names. But anyway, he plays the character of Oishi, who is the main character, I guess you could argue, in these two parts, as being the one in charge of this community and trying to dictate to them what is going on. But he's kind of playing this 3D chess where he's doing certain things for certain reasons, but then he's not telling them, because he doesn't want them to know the plans, because he doesn't want anything to get spoiled or for anyone to act rashly. But it does lead to some confusion amongst them, thinking wrongly of Oishi. And the film actually ends with this really amazing shot of Oishi going to commit, because the 47 Ronin do indeed get their revenge. It's a pretty well-known story at this point. You had a kind of a remake, I guess, with I really wouldn't call it necessarily a remake, because it's very, in my opinion, based on the one time that I've seen it, not really connected with the story at all, at the very least not in a very clear way, with oh man, now I'm blanking out on his name's Keanu Reeves. There's one that came out about 10 years ago, so at this point, with Keanu Reeves, which is just not very good at all. But at least in that movie, you did have someone like a Keanu Reeves in the film who was able to kind of draw to that case. But anyway, the story of 47 Ronin has indeed been around for a long time and has been adapted several times as well. But to me, I think this is one of the better executions of it, because not only do you have this solid cast, you also especially have a great screenplay. One of my favorite lines is when this character, Oishi, getting back to that main point, is talking about how basically everything is like holding water cupped in the hand, where you're trying your best to hold it in, but water's still going to seep through, and that he fears that because of that one drop of water seeping through, that it's turned into a tidal wave, talking about, of course, the reaction of the other Ronin, who are very upset with him because they don't really know exactly what's going on. But there's this great sequence that happens with that. And as I said, at the very end, with this character of Oishi, there's this fade away shot as he's going off to commit seppuku for obviously getting revenge on the character of Lord Kira, again avenging his master Lord Asano. So I know I'm talking a lot, but really it's one of these films that I think is very complex to talk about, because even though there are these strong, objectively strong points of cinematography, the score also, there's some great moments when the score just wells up and it's just full of emotion. The end of part one especially is a very good transition point. I was able to watch that actually with a couple people. I was able to get the Valkyrie, Empress of the Universe. Tina was watching it with me, as well as it was Andrew Hoyle, was one of the Chosen of Valhalla, and we were all just amazed at just how strong the dialogue and how strong the writing was for this movie. So it was a very welcome change from the Samurai trilogy, which even though I liked certain parts of it, the writing was definitely not the strongest part of that series of films, and so it's good to have that here. But as I said, there really isn't any strong leading performance, so even though the person here, Chojuro Kawarasaki, by Oishi, he's kind of supposed to be the main character, he doesn't really feel like it. It feels, again, more like there's just this really strong supporting cast, all of whom do a great job. But I think that might be also one of the reasons why I'm not as fond of this as I might have been had it been, I guess, better preserved, and also, too, had they maybe had a bit of a person. Again, I could be totally offending a lot of people who are looking into Japanese film history and say, you have no idea who this guy is. This guy has been in so many different things. But again, the fact that there's no link to him, at least in this context, makes me think that he is not as well known in this context. But anyway, if I had to give this film a grade, I'd give it an A-, because the cinematography is so strong, the writing is so strong. Again, it has all of these fantastic elements to it, great score, but the unfortunate thing is that it has not been able to stand the test of time, not as a film, but literally as film because of the degradation. So I really do hope that they are able to somehow either find a better edition that's been more well preserved, or they're able to do another scan of the movie and maybe address some of the shaking issues, because obviously that's one of the biggest problems and one of the biggest questions that people ask in film transfer is how much do you meddle with it? How much do you want to meddle with the director or the filmmaker's original vision? Do you want to tweak it at all, even if it means that it's going to look better overall? For me, I think that there's a balance. I think that if it's to the point where the image is kind of shaking because of the film stock, to me, if you're stopping that shaking, that is not, infringing upon the image of the filmmaker. In fact, I think that you're kind of helping to preserve it or present it in a better way because of the lack of quality of the film stock. But again, that is just my opinion on that. But yeah, this is a film that you can check out if you have the Criterion channel, which I just signed up for this morning because I wanted to get some access to more Toshiro Mifune films and also to some more Akira Kurosawa films as well. There's a 2-week free trial that you can get with that, and it's only about like $10 or $11 a month, and there's tons of movies on there, especially of the samurai genre, so I'm very excited. But anyway, what are your thoughts about the 47 Ronin? Again, part 1, part 2 is a 1941 film split into 2 parts, as it has broken down here, 112 minutes and 111 minutes, 223 minutes overall. Again, I think both of them were completely fantastic. Obviously, because of the war you have here, it was released in Japan in 1941, not released into the United States until March 1979. So definitely not a surprise there by any means. But here's some other interesting things going on here. It says part 1 was a commercial failure at a cost of 530 yen. I think I assume that's yen. Having been released in Japan 1 week before the attack on Pearl Harbor, the Japanese military and most audiences found the first part to be too serious, but the studio and Mizoguchi both regarded it as so important that part 2 was put into production. Despite lukewarm reception for part 1, the film wasn't shown in America until the 1970s. So again, very fascinating to see that happen, and it doesn't seem to have any reference to how it was released or anything about Criterion, which again makes me upset. And maybe y'all have information that I do not have yet about why Criterion does not have this currently out on Blu-ray and is instead only available via streaming. Let me know in the comment section, specifically the pinned comment section below, if you have that information or are interested in this information. And if you like this video, smash that like button, light up that fire button. It really does help out a lot. You're all amazing, beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge shout out to all of my June Patreon and Subscribestar members: Andrew Hoyle, Biffer the Hobbit, Brian P., Dion, Don Bruno de la Mancha, Enrique Evangelista, Father Christopher Miller, hail to you, Father, Father Damian Cook, Garrett Searles, Inflamed Wood, It's a Trap Productions, Jason Clark, Jacob Juice, Jeffrey Toon, Jonathan Carney, Laura the Modern Major General's Story, Mike Jackson, Mad Mitch Dunaway, Mr. Peabody and his evil twin with the beautiful hair, On to June, Orange Hat Reviews, Out of Step with Reality, Priscilla Hall, Riff Magos, Rosetta Allen, Teresa Martin, Theodore Bendon, and rather Teresa Martin is Miss Martin Muses now, Tina Bojan, Tina B., and Washington Madranda. Thank y'all very much for being my supporters on Patreon. And to my Subscribe Star peeps, Fast Reaction, Nosferatu Gatsu, Stand For, John B., Perpetual Punster, Mr. Roy, Glinzer, J. Alex McCarthy Jr., Dean Heiss / The New Number 2, J-Rod the Beer Guru, Nevanon G. Adams, and ZK Man. Thank you all very much for being my Subscribe Star members, and if you want your name shouted out at the end of every video and live stream, please consider joining on Patreon or Subscribe Star. You also get access at other tiers to things like a bi-monthly podcast, bi-weekly, twice a month podcast that I do with John the Flick Pick Flickinger, which is a lot of fun. There's also a tier in which you can join me once a month for the Chosen of Valhalla live stream, where you all get to, at that level, join me for discussions, talk about any projects that you might be working on, or just hang out and have a good time. It's a lot of fun. And also, too, for many of those levels, you also get access to a giveaway section on the Discord server, where you get access to giveaways of things like 4K movies, digital codes, and tons of other stuff like that. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, check out the links in the description and sign up over on Patreon and Subscribe Star. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.